Hello, everybody. It's the Space King Scott, and today is the analysis for the previews of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. And this image that you're staring at was provided by my lovely partner, Nana, because, well, to be frank, they fixed it. They fixed the game, ladies and gentlemen. They did everything, or, well, practically everything, that I could realistically ask for to be done in a remastering effort like this. In the words of Luxon, this is Xenoblade X as it was originally probably intended to be experienced. Well, not literally, because we do have the old version of the game, but if the, design side ambition of X was to be matched by the quality, well, this probably be roughly close to what we're going to get. So, today I'm going to be discussing a lot of information from a lot of different sources around the web. And as each one comes up, I will go ahead and do my best to highlight the person or group that is signing off on this information, and then move on. And I have ordered the stuff in order of importance. So yeah, let's do this, shall we? So, first things first is the article by RPG Site. They know who they're speaking to here. They know that we're the Xenoblade fans, that we're the ones that are extremely hardcore over all of this, that want to know how it is that the game has been enhanced and why it is that we should double dip if we experienced the game before. So they had the best and most important breaking news when the previews went out. Also, one last note before we get into this. The reason that this is coming out a day later than most other people is simply because when Nintendo game previews tend to go out, there also tends to be a correlation where the final overview trailer will launch right next to those previews. So what I was hoping to do was to bundle this in with all of the information in a preview trailer, but it didn't happen. And I saw some comments online suggesting that previews coming out this early is actually quite abnormal. It's much closer to expect to be 2 weeks before launch to get previews and the overview trailer at the same time. So for the overview trailer, my plan will be to post a live reaction, but I am not going to overanalyze it like I did the previous overview trailer. And the reason for that is that, well, I've already dug pretty hard into this experience, and I don't really want to ruin that for myself, Like, I want to go in there knowing what I do know, but also not knowing a decent amount of things and not overly picking at things. Similar to how it was for me when the Future Redeemed trailer came out. I could have overanalyzed every single little detail and probably figured out a decent portion of the plot before it released, but that just isn't as fun. I'm just going to be honest. I'd like to be surprised and delighted. So, yeah. So to make up for that, we're going to have on the channel about a week or two, maybe 3 weeks, I don't know, after the launch of XCXDE, and it will be a review, which will basically encapsulate two perspectives. One, how is the game as it is today, and how does the game improve on the original version, and how do I feel about that? So, yeah. Enough with the future plans. Okay, 2 diversions. Now, let's get on topic. First things first, RPG Site. They are clarifying, obviously, what we can see with our eyeballs, which is that the graphics have been enhanced. We have enough evidence to suggest that it's probably of a 1080p resolution. Side-by-side comparisons have shown that the pixelation is less stair-steppy, less, jagged. There is still jaggies because 1080p footage is not as good as 4K footage at eliminating those jagged edges. So, yeah. Also, it's probably a likelihood that they're using a reconstruction method for the graphics like they did in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. In Xenoblade 3, they internally rendered the game at 540p before reconstructing the image at a higher resolution in order to make that game function at all. That's why it is that Xenoblade 3 is, punching so far above its weight. And it's quite likely that this is probably something similar here. Game does still target 30 FPS. That was expected, again, because this is the Nintendo Switch, and the Nintendo Switch is only marginally more powerful than the Wii U. It would take a substantial increase over Wii U level horsepower in order to facilitate, better FPS target, 60 FPS. Maybe there'll be a Nintendo Switch 2 mode, but if there's not, well, I guess that explains why it is that they're shutting off gold coins, because just being realistic, I could definitely see a circumstance where Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA are cross-generational, with the gold coin system being shut off just right before the the deadline of this game's release. So that's definitely something to think about. Now, here is the next thing, and this is the feature of the thumbnail, which is that you can change your party at any time. You can change your party at any time. You have no idea how much of an improvement that this is going to make to the pace of the experience. Just from a fundamental perspective, Xenoblade Chronicles X, the original release, was flawed in its approach to this. The idea was to immerse yourself within the setting of NLA and Mira by having to physically seek out these characters to place them into your party. I'm just going to be completely honest. That was a stupid design side decision that had a lot of knock-on effects that me and Nana very thoroughly dug into. If everything is revolving around these characters having these affinity missions and these heart-to-hearts, and you want to learn more about these characters, but if there's a big gate in the way of, experiencing that, well, you don't seek that out. And that's probably a substantial portion of what led to Xenoblade Chronicles X having this reputation, at least amongst the fans that definitely prefer the numbered games, which is that, oh, this game doesn't have that great of a story. Well, it does have a decent story. It's just that that decent story is locked away and obfuscated by the system that was necessary to have playable characters in your party. That was a flop, just putting it bluntly. And as a result, I'm willing to bet that a substantial number of people only ever did affinity missions that were straight up required for main story progression. Never progressing anything that wasn't immediately required. And this very simple change, having a menu to pull up that gives you what characters you want to assign, when you want to assign them, it's an instant, dramatic improvement over the original experience. And many people have pointed something out, including RPG Site itself. the original Xenoblade Chronicles X only had enough slots to fill up to here on this character select screen. There are 4 more slots. Who will those characters be? Well, surely this is going to tie into the additional story content. But also, further than that, is it possible that they're going to add in characters from the story that played pivotal roles throughout the experience, but however did not, shall we say, get to be playable before? So a good example of this is the Prince. Gajarg, I do believe his name is, the Prince of Roth. He is a badass, and he's important-ish in the story, and over the course of that adventure, you forge an alliance with him. Well, he's not playable for some reason. So maybe they're doing that. And there are other obvious characters that they could select, like him, to add to that playable character lineup. It's definitely food for thought. And also, if they're going to be adding 4 new characters, that means there's going to be 4 new sets of heart-to-hearts, as well as 4 new sets of affinity missions. So this is the kind of thing that cascades into having substantially new content in a large enough volume that it does kind of suggest, like, to us, like, why it is that this exists, you know? With a re-release like this, one of the big problems that a lot of Wii U ports have is justifying its own existence. Immediately you have to think about games that didn't add a lot to the core experience. And they just get re-released at the price that they were on Wii U. This is not going to be a problem with this game. So that's definitely the big thing, right? That's the meme image. It's been 3,000 years. So long have I wanted a friggin' character select screen. Next up is that you can change the clock whenever you want to. This is a very small, yet very impactful change. Well, you can still manually change the time, as it's stated, whenever you want to at those places, but just change it in the menu. It should have always just been a menu thing. There are quests in this game that revolve around time, and not being able to change the time on a dime was a mistake. This is a correction to that mistake. Simple enough. Next up, quick cooldown. I had a whole segment over this on my previous video. And, well, now the Western world can very easily parse this information. And it works pretty much like we thought that it was going to, based on the information that was provided on the blog site, which is that you have a cooldown that allows you to automatically juice the recharge of an art, and it restores at the end of battle, and it's basically a get out of jail free card that will allow you to activate a soul voice and restore you some HP to keep you alive and keep you in the fight, even when things were looking bad. So, it's just a good change, and it's gonna affect the balance, I do suspect. Hopefully they've accounted for that. I think that they probably have, given how substantial the rest of the changes in this experience have proven to be. Next up is new characters, and, they're just candid about it. Yeah, there were slots for new characters and new story content. That was obvious. We already knew that. So, this is the second biggest change. This is massive, okay? No blade levels, no division points. What does that mean? Well, in the original Xenoblade Chronicles X, you would increase your blade level. And what that would do is that would allow you to unlock certain gates of progression that manifested in what treasure you were allowed to collect in the overworld at any given point in time. And I'm going to be completely candid and I'm going to be completely honest. It was stupidly implemented. Because what is the major point in this game? What are you trying to do in this game? You're trying to lay down probes so that you can expand the reach of Frontier Nav, which will then expand the Mira survey rate, which will then allow you to further progress the story, because the narrative relies on the success of the Frontier Nav mission. Allow me to tell you why it is that this was a very poorly thought out system in the original version of the game. The reason being is that mechanical was extremely overly important to the point of invalidating practically completely the other paths that you could take to upgrade your blade level. Why is that? Because it would take mechanical level in order to install probes to expand Frontier Nav. And suddenly this all makes sense now. They've removed this barrier because they recognized the fundamental design problem. What happens if a player doesn't understand the importance of mechanical when upgrading their blade level? What if they put points into biological? Well, they could end up in a circumstance where they're not tough enough or adept enough at the game to fill out some of the hexagons on the overworld, or because there are bosses or special enemies that need to be taken care of. And so they're locked out of installing new probes, thereby expanding the Mira survey rate because their mechanical level isn't high enough. And so their only option left is to engage with fetch quests, which I am saying fetch quests because the vast majority of the generic side quests in Xenoblade Chronicles X were fetch questy. Just go here, catch that. Go here, kill that. Go here, do this. Right? That's a lot of what Xenoblade X's side content was. And this could grind the game to a halt. Thankfully, the Xenoblade community did a very good job within its own quarters of informing the player base of the importance of mechanical. But, well, now it's not important. Now, the article here does allude to how it basically works. Like, there's no biological level 2. There is no archaeological level 4. Most treasures on Mira can be obtained right away. Most. Not all. And I think I know which ones aren't able to be attained immediately. Those would be level 5 skill blocks. Level 5 was fundamentally different from the rest of the lineup, in that in order to unlock a level 5 field skill gate, you had to complete side quests, which would unlock your level 5 skill, and therefore allowing you to collect level 5 treasure on the overworld. They've probably compromised here by maintaining the veil, preventing you from getting level 5 treasure, but everything level 4 and under, fair game. Go ahead and take it. So yeah, this is going to have a massive impact on the flow of the game, because now most of the gates that gated your progression and your Mira survey rate just aren't there anymore. meaning that there's just no real reason why it is that you shouldn't be able to progress through and beat the main story anymore. Next up, Frontier Nav accessed via menu. This was obvious. We already saw this in the trailers. It was going to have to be that way. No way that it wasn't going to be that way. There's no Wii U gamepad to work with here. And the other additions. So, affinity levels with party members fill more quickly. So, affinity missions unlock faster. Good. Affinity missions in the original game were brutal in how long they took to unlock. And now, you're no longer disincentivized from doing so by trying to have to physically hunt down the party member in NLA, but also you're no longer disincentivized on the basis that, well, it doesn't take as long. Good. Party members not in the active party will still gain experience points. What can I say except I called it? I called it. Yeah, they kind of had to do this, didn't they? Well, yeah, because those party members that aren't in your active party not gaining experience points just further added to the reason why it is that you wouldn't use a given character. And now there is no excuse. Change your party members how you please to your heart's content. You now gain rewards for completing your survey of Mira. So, instead of progressing your blade level and survey rate in that fashion, now you are just rewarded with, well, basic things that you would expect. Money, reward tickets, energy clips. As well as those energy clips, they increase the quick cooldown meter, allowing you to use it more often. So, quick cooldown, they have thought of how to go about balancing this. It works like we thought it was going to. So, yeah, it's a resource that you have to fight for over the course of the adventure. More defined quest tracking. Xenoblade Chronicles X's side quests often require a lot of scourging for resources, and to match the standards of modern games, quest tracking on the map has been updated. It is even more robust than it was in Xenoblade 3, as we saw in the previous trailer. Thank you to RBG Site and Colin Black for your information and for your duty. You guys have done a awesome job. Oh yeah, and Adam Vitale. Next up is an article in a different language. This is posted by Javi Consolas and Alvaro Alonso. I probably butchered the hell out of that name. And, well, they basically explain pretty much everything that we had previously understood. But, well, there is one piece of news here that isn't in the other pieces of news that I have seen going around, which is that basically there is a option in the game. This was the first game in the Xenoblade series that had this, but there is an option to have what's called fashion gear, where your character appearance does not align with the equipment that you have equipped. If you liked a certain look, you can wear that equipment instead of the other equipment that would have better stats. Just a big problem with this, though. In the original Xenoblade X, if you sold the equipment that was in your fashion gear slot, well, that's a big no-no, because you would lose it. You would lose the opportunity to have that look for your character. Now, it works like it did in Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition. Unlocking a piece of equipment by buying it or getting it in the overworld or what have you permanently unlocks it as an opportunity to have in the customize your character segment of the game. So, you know, that's just good. that's just good. That's something that should have just been that way originally. What can I say? Next up is, if this tab would close, the Gamer Side official videos. And there's only one thing I really have to comment on here, which is that you can see here in this video that there is a plus button that will go to the main menu. And yeah, there's a hints. So there's a hints tab, hints menu. Works exactly like it did in the original, works exactly like it did in Xenoblade 3. That's all there really is to say about that. Also, in-game achievements return. If this game does have a Xenoblade, if this game does have a Switch 2 enhancement, maybe there's going to be achievements. Just food for thought. I don't know. Now, here's something. This is by Shacknews, and they went over the settings menu. And there's one big thing here that a lot of people are talking about, which is, if I could find it, in the sound tab. If I could find it. I should have pulled this up before. Alright, the Scale Flight background music, arranged lyrics. So this refers to Don't Worry, which is the song that plays whenever you go flying in your Skell. This is actually a pretty good song, but it has the Xenoblade 3 problem where it overrides every other song in the game. So if you want to get immersed in the world of Mira, unfortunately, this song would override great songs like the Sylvalum theme. And so it's kind of built up a negative reputation in the community. So being able to change it is definitely a good thing. Also, you can turn off practically everything about the user interface in this settings menu, which is, cool for people that like that no UI experience, that like no barriers between you and the experience kind of game. All right. Next up is a tweet by Gene Park, where he basically he's asked, like, oh, it kind of sucks that it takes 60 hours to unlock the flying mech. And they explain, well, they made quality of life features now that I'm not sure I could talk about yet, but yes, but this is addressed. Originally, what I thought is that this meant that they were going to change the placement within the game that you would get your Skell. But somebody actually asked a question, which is, wait, I know, I loved how long it made you wait to get the Skell. Which then they responded with, no, don't worry, it's still in the same place, but the overall advancement in the game is much, much, much easier. So, yeah, that's a very good observation, okay? What made the Skell license, getting to that point, so brutal, was just the ridiculous amount of time that it would take, and a lot of this was ridiculous time because of stupid, superfluous things that Xenoblade X did that it had no business doing, like the party problem, for example, that wasted the player's time, or the piss poor quest tracking. With these things fixed, that means that the overall pace of the game is going to be a lot faster. What that means is that instead of this taking 60 hours to get your Skell, maybe it's like 45. Still enough time to make it feel like, it was a really worthwhile, really meaty investment of the player time in order to get to that Skell. So you maintain that sense of satisfaction, but also not so much time that it feels like you're just waiting and begging to get your hands on the primary draw of the experience. Next up is a post by Quiet Fields. Follow them if you can. Which is that there is now, like there was in the previous Xeno games, an in-game encyclopedia. Hoo boy! What else can be said? This has been a long time coming. A long, long time coming. This has been in previous Xeno games. Within previous iterations of the Xeno series. This was from Xenosaga 3. In Xenosaga 3, there is an in-game encyclopedia that explains the game's entire lore, so that if you drop the game for a few months and you didn't remember the understandably extremely complicated and complex lore of Xenosaga, well, you could just dive back in, read up, and figure out what was going on. By fixing this, they have made the game way more accessible to people who aren't like me that are ridiculously overinvested. That's a good thing. That's just a good thing. More games need features like this. Like for example, one feature I always think of in an RPG that's really good is Dragon Quest XI had a feature where if you'd been away from the game for a while, there's literally a last time on Dragon Quest feature where it would tell you what was happening previously in the game, so that if you took a long time away, you wouldn't be lost. This isn't quite that, but it's a good start. And it's something that the series needs to embrace. And I know why they shied away from it, which was that back in 2006, when Xenosaga 3 came out, the database leaked. It leaked onto the internet, and as a result, a not insignificant portion of the fan base got spoiled. This is something that Nintendo is going to have to work on going on into the next generation. If they're going to maintain having a story-driven franchise, or franchises like Xenoblade and Fire Emblem, they're going to have to find ways in order to prevent the game from leaking so that people like me who are interested in the story aren't having their experience ruined. I have no idea how they go about accomplishing such a thing, but they're going to have to figure it out, especially if they're going to commit to making these stories more accessible like this. Next up is a post by, this is a screenshot from BRCDE, which is another foreign channel. I don't know anything about these guys, but they showed the save system. And it's exactly the same way that we thought it was going to be. It's just the Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition version of the game. You have an auto-save slot. You have 3 manual save slots. Good! The original Xenoblade X, as well as Xenoblade 2, didn't have multiple save slots. And this was a design mistake, in my honest opinion. They have fixed the game. This is the major reoccurring thing that I keep saying throughout this video. They have fixed the game. Or at least I keep alluding to. They made the game more fun. They made the game more approachable. They made the game just more complete. And also, I think that they've taken the criticism of Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition to heart. In Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition, well, there was a problem. That problem was that, basically, the main menu was kind of bland. And it didn't really suit the vibe of the original Xenoblade. That's a fair criticism. And you can see here with Xenoblade X that the game has retained its personality whilst also being approachable. It's such a simple idea. But it goes so far, right? It's designed to look like how the rest of Xenoblade X is supposed to look like. But at the same time, it's also useful to the player, unlike the previous UIs were. Amazing. I am absolutely glazing here. Now, here with Nintendo Life, they have side-by-side comparisons of the graphics. And it's pretty much exactly what we thought. The game just looks less fuzzy, looks less blurry, textures are better, faces are better, just across the board. That's all there really is to say about that. Really, all there really is to think about that. And here's the old game, which, by the way, looking at this old user interface after seeing the smexy new one, hoo boy, it's very hard to go back. I will never willingly go back to old Xenoblade X. Old Xenoblade X looks cursed to me now, unfortunately. It's the same thing that happened to me with one definitive edition. Next up is the fact that, well, we have more information from BRCDE, which is that the class menu is completely unchanged. We still have six level 4 classes. I know what I'm going for. I'm going for Galactic Enforcer, just like I did last time. You can't stop me. I am going to be a Jedi. Here is imagery of the user interface that is displayed when you collect items. They didn't really change a lot here. Probably for better or for worse. What can I say except if they've improved the pace of the game this much that I don't really care about minor problems at that point, you know? Also, here is the last thing, which is that the character creator has been updated with new features. You can access the appearance and look of characters from other games, presumably as a reward. We don't know how this reward is processed, whether it's something that you just unlock if you've played other Xeno games, like some people have suggested, or if it's something that you get via the story or something via Amiibo. We just don't know at this point in time. What we do know is that this looks extremely cursed. This looks very strange and very weird, and we're just going to have to accept it. Well, yeah. What can I say except they finished the game. They fixed the game. They've done it. They've done it. Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yeah, dudes. This is awesome. They have retained everything that made Xenoblade X good, and they have banished to the Shadow Realm most of the things that weren't good about it. Now, here's one thing I did want to talk about, which is a post that was made in one of the articles. Apparently, I didn't get a home run on my wish list, though, which is that there is apparently still enemies that are extremely aggressive. I don't know how to feel about that one, because the enemy aggro range, it was contextualized within gameplay and it made sense, but it was also just kind of annoying to deal with. It will remain to be seen how the game has been changed in a balance level from a fundamental perspective, how that is going to feel. Maybe you're going to get into fights with enemies that are chasing after you, and you can just fight them off now instead of having to run and run and run. You know, like if quick cooldown is useful, if you have a fourth party member that is actually relevantly strong, you know, suddenly you're not going to have to run away from as many fights, I don't think. So, yeah, that's kind of indirectly solved, but also, you know, that does remain to be seen. We're going to have to see how that applies in practice to make the game, you know, better, right? We don't want a circumstance where the game is just impossible until you get your skill. That is a big problem that we had before. The game was just very, very difficult before. And this makes the game a lot more accessible. All this stuff has. And I am glad, because it means that Xenoblade X will, by and large part, dodge most of the problems that X, and I guess by extension, considering that Xenoblade 2 was built out of X, 2 had, you know, problems that 1DE and 3 solved in their design pipeline, and hopefully they can one day return to Xenoblade 2 in order to make it the best game in the series like it's always wanted to be, you know? So, with that all in mind, I guess I'm going to have to see you next time for the reaction video to the upcoming overview trailer whenever that is going to release. And after that, I am going to definitely be posting the Xenoblade X video that I've been promising. The How X basically saved my gaming life video. It's going to be very different from everything else on the channel, and that's on purpose. I hope that you'll look forward to being here with me, listening to me. Thank you. The videos have done shockingly well, considering how, off the cuff some of them have been. So, just thank you, really. You have no idea how much it means to me that anybody gives a crap about what I have to say and my observations. We may have found the Wonderland, ladies and gentlemen. We might have found the Wonderland. I've been the Space King Scott. I'll see you in the next one. Signing off. Bye-bye.